Cat raised the orphaned tiger cubs, but years later something shocking happened. The natural world often astonishes us with its extraordinary events, leaving us in awe. One such remarkable story involves a cat that took on the role of a mother to two orphaned tiger cubs, raising and nurturing them with care. Yet, as the years went by, something truly unexpected unfolded. Edward, an avid adventurer, often found solace in the solitude of the wilderness. These trips were his escape from the relentless grind of city life, a way to recharge his spirit and reconnect with the untamed beauty of nature. This time, he ventured deep into the heart of the forest, a place that had always captivated him with its allure. Edward trekked for miles, embracing the solitude and the untamed beauty surrounding him. As evening fell, he pitched his tent and immersed himself in the soothing coolness and tranquil silence of the wilderness. But just as he began to relax, an unusual sound broke the stillness, a strange noise that echoed repeatedly, drawing his attention. Drawn by curiosity, Edward followed the source of the sound and was astonished to discover two tiny, seemingly newborn tiger cubs lying helplessly on the grass. The sight left him speechless, and there was no trace of their mother anywhere nearby. He waited patiently, hoping the tigress might return, but she never appeared. The unsettling thought crossed his mind. Perhaps she had fallen victim to poachers or succumbed to illness, leaving her cubs alone and vulnerable. The man realized that without his help, the two tiny, defenseless tiger cubs would surely die, as they could hardly stand on their paws and squeaked pitifully from cold and hunger. Edward gently picked up the tiger cubs and brought them to his home. His family was surprised by the arrival of the two little predators, but Edward managed to convince them to keep them at home, at least for a while. Now, the good man was faced with the most important question of how to feed two tiger cubs who had recently been born. The answer came by itself. Edward had a beautiful and graceful cat, Bessie, at home for several years, whom the whole family loved. Bessie recently gave birth to kittens once again, and Edward took the risk of introducing his pet to wild tiger cubs. At first, the curious cat sniffed the cubs, which were almost her size. However, Bessie quickly realized that she was looking at inexperienced, defenseless cubs who needed love and care. Bessie's maternal instincts kicked in, and she let the cubs drink warm, nourishing milk from her breasts. In just a few days, thanks to the kind cat's efforts, the tiger cubs grew stronger, put on weight, and looked much healthier. Bessie took care of the tiger cubs as if they were her own kittens, and they followed her everywhere, recognizing her as their only mother. When the cubs began to fight among themselves, Bessie always stopped their scuffle, even though she was already smaller in size than her adoptive children. As days passed, the cubs grew bigger and began to turn into real wild predators. Then Edward began to realize that he could no longer keep the cubs at home, as it was becoming increasingly dangerous every day. And the growing predators constantly damaged furniture and belongings with their sharp claws and teeth. Meanwhile, Bessie was not at all afraid of the striped predators, still seeing them as her beloved babies. After some discussion, the family decided to take the young tigers to the local zoo. All family members were deeply saddened on the day of parting, especially the cat Bessie, who looked incredibly sad and depressed and even refused to eat for some time. Edward handed both tigers over to the zoo, understanding well that releasing them into the wild was not an option, as they had grown up in domestic conditions, and now, despite all their strength and might, they simply could not survive in the wild. Edward, with a heavy heart, handed the tigers over to the experienced hands of the zoo staff, and after that day, he tried not to visit there anymore, as each meeting with the predators caused pain in his heart. Years passed. The house cat Bessie had aged significantly, so Edward decided to take her to the vet. After the examination, the vet advised the man to euthanize the unfortunate animal, which suffered from numerous diseases due to its age. Edward replied that he would think about it and rushed home, as he wanted to do one important thing. The man decided to give Bessie a real farewell gift and take her to the zoo, where she could once again see the grown-up tigers who were still her adoptive children. Of course, Edward wasn't sure if the huge predators would recognize the much-aged cat, but he felt he just had to do it. Arriving at the zoo, Edward quickly found a spacious enclosure with two tigers who were now fully grown and gracefully walking around their territory. Edward cautiously stepped closer to the tigers, but to his dismay, they merely glanced at him with indifference before turning away and retreating deeper into the enclosure. Disheartened, Edward then reached into his bag and carefully brought out Bessie, holding her up to the glass. The moment the tigers spotted the familiar house cat, their eyes lit up with recognition. They raced to the glass, rising on their hind legs as if trying to embrace their beloved adoptive mother. It was unmistakable. The two tigers recognized Bessie, the cat who had saved their lives and nurtured them so many years ago. Despite their enormous size now, Bessie also recognized her adopted children instantly. She plaintively meowed and pressed herself against the glass of the enclosure, eager to shower them with the same tenderness and care she had given them as cubs. Witnessing this heartfelt moment, Edward couldn't hold back his tears. He had never imagined that the bond between a mother and her children could be so profound, even in the animal kingdom. This love, unshaken by the passage of time or the difference in species, remained unwavering and pure. Edward stood by the tiger enclosure for what felt like an eternity, unable to tear himself away from the touching reunion between Bessie and her adoptive cubs. The memory of that extraordinary and moving day was etched into his heart forever. What an incredible story! If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so please leave a comment below. See you in the next video.